The light bearer. He was 23 when the light bearer came. He was in his room lying on his bed, and outside the window a heavy cloud ominously obscured the stars and the moon from his glare. Although he gazed out of the window, he was really gazing within, for the feeling had come again, and he knew that he had to pick up his pen and paper and write. That is, if write was the correct term for the oncoming event. He had been having these feelings for some time now, and he had written some literature a few weeks ago that was totally beyond his own understanding. He was not totally sure if this was the working of his own mind that was tricking him in some way. So he just sat there confused, and he began to read the literature once more. It wrote, "The Eozolic epic of the Erebus will evoke equational rights, and will elucidate, but not allude to the one who will evanescence, or in plain English, as much as he could work out." It wrote, "The dawn life of the poetic written heroes will call up the dead. Dead memories of the dark planet, and will perceive, but not deceive, and will totally explain to the one who fades and wears out." He could see that this was a message, but he didn't understand it. It was like some kind of enigma that he could not solve, but on a deeper, or perhaps even a spiritual level, it did make some kind of sense. When the writing came through, he would feel strange, as if he was small and sometimes tall, and everything around him would seem to be out of perspective. He would feel an adrenal rush, and his mind would at first race and then remain focused. It was so focused that he could not only hear a pin as it dropped on the other side of his room, but he could probably see it as it dropped and feel it too. Then, he would feel the energy pulsating up and down, in and out, as it flowed all throughout his being. When he had checked on the internet to see if the writing was real, he was amazed to find out that it was indeed real. He did not question why he had written such a thing, only how he could know those words. He had thought to himself that at first it was just a subconscious overspill, like a doodle. You know, what the post-Freudians called surrealism, and he also figured that this could account for the strange feelings too. He had looked it up on the internet, and it had suggested that it was free association. However, free association came from the subconscious, or even its deepest depths, the unconscious mind, and how could he have those kinds of words if he had never been remotely interested in literature in his life? His schooling had never taught him those kinds of words, and because he had no interest in English, let alone Latin, how could it be in his unconscious waiting to spill out in that way? He looked over the writing once more to shake the ambiguity, and read each piece ardently and with precision. He now had it down to: "The New Age Gnostics will write a truth that is built with an open mind on science, philosophy and theosophy, and it will be scribed with no prejudices, preconceived ideas, or tainted by flattery, and will be written with perceptions, not deception. So it's truths, not lies, that deceive or beguile." He was totally mystified at how he could write such literature, for he was just an average 23-year-old lad, and all that possessed his mind was football, clubbing and girls, not linguistics. He then thought, if this is not I, perhaps I could somehow communicate with it, like I have done with my spirit board. So, he got up from his bed, and sat upon the chair by the window with some paper on his lap and a pen in his hand. He propped himself up with some pillows and placed his pen to the paper, and then he asked aloud, "Who are you?" The pen began to write, "I am the light bearer." He could hardly believe that he was communicating with the writing. He was baffled by the reply, so he asked again, "Who are you?" "I am the light bearer, and I am in spirit," it replied. "Why are you doing this?" he asked. "We do this because we can," it spelt out. "What do you want of me?" he questioned. The message was that we want you to write a book to tell the world to awake spiritually and to heal, not harm their planet. Basically, you are going to write a new age Gnostic book to totally explain spirit, and that it will be perceived by humanity, by those in power, or those in spiritual need, it replied. You want me to do what? He replied hesitantly. It is your destiny to tell the world to think about tomorrow, and bear responsibility for the planet's welfare before it is too late, it wrote. His head was spinning, and then he said, no one is going to believe what I say. And what do you mean think of tomorrow and the world, why me? If the world is destroyed, not only will the planet be cut off from the source of creation and absolution, but also there will be much confusion and peril. As for why you, the signs are there for you to succeed. All you have to do is become aware of them and master the path, which can lead you through them, and confidence and foresight will do the rest, it replied. What do you mean? He asked. The planet is a conduit to the light. At first, there is just pure energy. Think of the transformation of a fertilized egg that eventually transforms into a bird or some other kind of reptile. The mother cannot be seen, for it is on the outside of the shell. However, she is out there helping the process along in the best way that she can, giving her support and supplying it with warmth and protection. Now, think of a caterpillar as it passes through the natural changes that come with its metamorphosis into a butterfly. Its whole body breaks down and then reconstructs in the chrysalis, and eventually it breaks free, and then bathes in the sun to dry its wings. Then off it flies into its new life, where it flutters in the ambient breeze, gently landing on and then sipping the nectar from its favorite flowers. So, it is then, at first there is pure energy, and that energy transfers from its plane of existence through the appropriate conduit to take on the form of, in your case, animal, in other cases plant form, or flora. As the life form grows, it builds up wisdom of its soul's journey, which it accumulates from its life's experiences on both sides of the veil. As it grows, with its maturational biological utilities and processes, and its cultural conditioning and living experiences, it gains different perspectives on its ever-changing life. At pubescence, it gains its abstract potential, and it is able to help the process along with its new spiritual awareness. However, things do not always go to plan, and so it may and often does take many lives to reach the perfected state. In the end, it is one's adaptability to change and reach harmony that paves the path, so the soul's subtle body can be complete, and the mind can be opened and become wise. So like the chick in the egg, it can break away and discard the shell as it unites with its creator, and at the same time, it is the butterfly that breaks free from the chrysalis after its transformation, and bathes in its new world's light as it prepares to venture forth. So it is then that the soul breaks free from the physical world and then ascends into the light. If the doorway is closed, no more life can make that journey, and many predestined souls will suffer. Souls not just of your world, but other parallel worlds and alternate dimensions that make the same physical journey and coexist spiritually within your cosmic physical space. Although we could send them through another conduit, it could never be their true destinies. In addition, the souls that perish in your selfish destruction of your world would be caught up in a sea of darkness and confusion. At present, if a soul gets trapped between worlds, we work together with physical beings to help them reach the light. He interrupted and asked, why do you need the help of living entities? Are you not God? No, we are not God, we are spirit and we work with God. I must point out that there is a difference to what you believe God to be. For example, God has no gender, and you expect it to be a male. For as I say, God is energy or spirit, and we are all, and so is everything the manifestation of its mind. Just like the mother and the egg, or the caterpillar, the chrysalis and the butterfly, we are all individual and one, and we are all working together. We need the living mediums and or ghostbusters, because the recently departed or lost spirits can relate to them easier. Because they have familiarities of the physical world, they can help them awake to their current situation, and then together we can help them into the light. If we send a spiritual guide, they fear them and they go in on themselves and hide, whereas a ghostbuster can relate to them and explain to them that they are not dead and alone, and that it is their time to cross over. He then questioned, "Can you prove that God exists?" First, we must look at where God does not exist, so that we can shake off the shackles and then rediscover its presence. It is said that the basic ingredients to make a universe are matter, energy and space, and that because energy and matter are the same thing according to Einstein's theory of relativity, E equals mc squared, there are just two ingredients. These are energy and space, and these two things were created with the Big Bang, and it did not need a creator to create them, or the subsequent building blocks of life. It is also suggested that the universe is made up of positive and negative energy that was created from the Big Bang. The positive energy is all that we can see, and the negative is what we cannot see, although we can, but only with the aid of mathematics or analogies. The negative energy, it is said, is stored in space. They say that when you balance them out, that they add up to zero, and this to them is the proof that the universe is made up of nothing and came from nothing, therefore, God does not exist. At the same time, they state that at the subatomic level protons randomly and spontaneously wink in and out of creation. So taking these laws into perspective, the universe does not need a creator. At the beginning they could have simply been following the subatomic laws. It is also said that if you were to reverse the expansion of the universe and reel back the eons of space and time, you would eventually reach a point where you would have a super dense black hole, and in this super dense black hole, time would not exist, just like at the edge of your conventional black holes. So, if there was no time there before the Big Bang, this rules out cause and effect, and that as there was no cause and effect, there is no place for God. So, taking this into perspective, they go on to reason that God does not exist. However, humankind has just begun to grasp that there is an order again, after many years of darkness brought about by that kind of logic and reason, but one must also use the heart to undertake God's existence, because without it you will find many contrary answers, it replied. What do you mean? He questioned. God is an all-powerful benevolent energy. It has dreamed up everything into fruition, all that we call creation. We are part of that dream, part of its mind, therefore we are not separate from our Creator, we are at one with our Creator. To connect to it, all one has to do is to live a virtuoso life, finding inner peace, love, harmony, liberty and bliss, and then simply observe and listen for the answers. I do not fully understand, are we God, or are we its creation? He asked. God and I are one, the I being you and every living thing, it answered. Why and how have the people abandoned God then? He went on to question. Let me elucidate, my friend. It's amazing that one can hold on to a seemingly infinite amount of facts and figures, but still fall short of all its wisdom. We all have the conscious properties of God along with its mistakes, and its mistakes in the past were seen as its imperfections. Our Creator was theorized as a perfect God within a perfect universe. However, as this was not the case according to logic and reason, God did not exist, it was a delusion. Further, because God did not exist and nothing was perfect within their imperfect universe, anything that turned out to be perfect or good among all the chaos was seen as the product of mere chance or coincidence. However, our mistakes are not our imperfections. They make up the cornerstone that is integral to our growth and understanding, and they are essential for our spiritual integrity. It is the same with creation and our benevolent and most awesome Creator. In a nutshell, God cannot be complete without its mistakes, because mistakes are within its potential and therefore they simply must and do exist within its nature and its creation. Is there a God, and can we prove its existence? Again he questioned. Well, let us use the heart, as well as logic and reason, and apply it to classic physics to find the answer. Do you think that all the cosmic sequences that came into fruition in the aftermath of the Big Bang were by chance or order? Let me be more specific so as I can present you with the totality of my argument. And it did not wait for his response, it pursued with its line of reasoning in more detail. Do you think that it was by chance that matter cancelled out antimatter at the dawn of creation? Was it by chance that there was just the right amount of gravity to sculpture our universe? Do you think that the stars and supernovas that have created all the elements in the periodic table are by chance? Is it by chance that our solar system is in the perfect place in our galaxy, in what is known as the habitable zone? Do you think that when Jupiter plowed the ice from beyond the snow line as it altered its orbit closer to the Sun, that combined with the rocks as the Earth formed and submerged below the surface, that was later released from the rock by volcanic heat to resurface and form clouds, that eventually came down as rain, which went on to create the rivers and the oceans and the water that was brought to the Earth by the asteroids and comets that added to their volume, that together have sculptured your geology, created your climate and environment that made life possible, were by chance? When Saturn and Jupiter's combined gravities made Jupiter retreat to an outer orbit, and that eventually, Jupiter, just having the correct size and gravity, ended up in the perfect position to protect your Earth from long-term comets that enter your solar system, stopping you from being wiped out of existence like your dinosaurs, was by chance? Do you think that it was by chance that a comet did get through and wiped out the dinosaurs that were at the top of the food chain and going nowhere 65 million years ago, subsequently paving the way for mammals to come into fruition that would eventually evolve into intelligent life that would then go on to invent weapons and tools, and that they will discover and adjust to and manipulate nature and their environment, eventually creating farms and communities, crafts and culture, and then go on to question the origins and the meaning of life. And when Jupiter brought water to the Earth, it also brought it to your neighboring planets Venus and Mars. However, Venus drew too close to the Sun and the water was vaporized into dense cloud as it suffered from the greenhouse effect, and Mars had no magnetic field or atmosphere to hold on to its water, and it was swept away into space by the Sun's solar winds. Whereas the Earth's orbit was the perfect distance from the Sun, and its magnetic field and atmosphere shielded the solar winds, so it did not suffer from Venus's and Mars's fate, was all by chance. Do you think that Earth, having just the right organic chemicals in its oceans to create and sustain life, was by chance? Do you think that it was by chance that a planet collided with the Earth 4.5 billion years ago, and from its death and the force of the Earth's gravity, the Moon was created at just the right size and had just the right amount of its own gravity to stabilize the tilt of the Earth to bring about the seasons so that life could evolve? Do you think that it was by chance that it slowed the rotation of the Earth down from a 6-hour to a 24-hour day? Was it by chance that the close proximity of the Moon at that time was close enough that it churned up the oceans, which subsequently deposited the right amount of nutrients and minerals in the rock pools to be the catalyst for life? Do you think that the supermassive black hole at the center of your galaxy that created new stars at its beginning is now limiting new stars from being born today, thus preventing harmful radiation from destroying life on Earth, was by chance? How many chance events do you need to see until you realize that there is in fact a pattern, and that although you have free will, you all have a destiny, just like the universe? I will not bog you down with all the unsolved mysteries of science and philosophy, For it is seemingly infinite, as it is futile. Just know that everything and everyone has a destiny as much as they have an alpha omega point. Or in simple terms, a birth and a death. The answer to your question is, if there is a design, there must be a designer. So, this is the proof that God exists. However, we are, as I have written, not outside of God like a cosmic machine, we are the manifestations of its mind. He then asked, does not science hold the answer to the origins of the universe and life on Earth? Have we not outgrown our Creator? It wrote, humankind is still in the learning process when dealing with these topics. They used to say that the universe was 10 billion, then it was 15 billion, and now it's 13.8 billion years old. As with the origins of life, they still cannot decide on the time. It is between 3.5 and 4 billion years ago, and they still have not reached an absolute on how life originated, be it in a rock pool, next to the hydrothermal vents on the ocean's floor, or brought here on an asteroid in the late bombardment, or even debris from Mars. In a nutshell, they are learning and updating the facts as they go along, which is in par with their technology. So if they rule out God, they are throwing the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. I would like to say that the biblical God is outdated, but a neo-view of God cannot be overlooked. Science does not know what is going to bring humankind to its knees. It could be in your hands with global warming or nuclear war. It could be when the moon finally expands its orbit around the Earth and then comes back to crash into your Earth, making the planet too desolate and barren for life to exist. It could be when the sun expands at its demise and gobbles you up in the process. It could be when Andromeda, your neighboring galaxy, collides with your galaxy. Or it could be a huge asteroid like the one that killed off the dinosaurs 65 million years ago that eradicates you. Truth be said, no, there will not be an eternal garden on earth at the end of days like the religions promise, but one must not turn their back on a heaven in an alternate spiritual dimension with an ever-loving, compassionate, tolerant and wise God at the helm. He then asked, what about the quantum view? It wrote, it is not by chance that scientists have discovered through mathematics that there must be 11 dimensions in order for string theory to exist. However, no matter how small that they shrink themselves, they will not find the missing 7 dimensions, because they are not smaller in size, they are subtle dimensions. There are 4 dimensions in your physical world and 7 dimensions in spirit, well 8, but you have to leave the light and enter the void to find the 8th. Basically, there are 11 dimensions within heaven and earth, each level more spiritually aware and subtler than the one before it. He then asked, what is the point of my existence? Why am I here spiritually? It wrote briskly, you are here to collect and harness love, common courtesy, respect, cooperation, tolerance, conscience, understanding and compassion from your life's experiences, and at the same time to combine and utilize the philosopher in your head with the child in your heart. Most people accomplish these traits from being virtuous, honest and full of goodwill. They have secure families, jobs and homes, and they have a few hobbies and forms of entertainment to give it an extra boost, so their life is full of the aforementioned contents. However, one's life does not have to be lived that way, for in the end, as long as you seek the positive spiritual traits that I mentioned above, it does not matter which path you wish to tread, for eventually all the paths lead to home. You can see the people who walk the correct path, for it is scribed upon their faces. Those on the right path look joyful, content, lucid and serene, and they look like they have been eating honey straight from the jar, whereas the others look sour, bitter, angry and confused. They look like they have been sipping the vinegar from the jar. It's as simple as that. He then asked, why is life so savage and cruel, and why do animals eat each other? It replied, Because one is bathed in an abundance of opposites, it is easy to fall victim to good versus evil, when really it is the creative side of spirit and the destructive side of nature. The universe in which you exist is not only polemic, it is also bathed in diversity. If you take a glass and smash it against a wall, and then inspect the fragments, you will clearly see diversity in its most basic form. Metaphorically speaking, the smashed glass are all the stars, solar systems, meteors, comets, gases, the four cosmic forces, and even life that make up all of creation. The unbroken glass is the void just before the Big Bang. Animals and plants are from the food chain, and when one sees it impersonally, one sees things as they really are, which is the circulation of energy. The lion preys upon the zebra preys upon the grass preys upon the nutrients from the soil, and they all coexist within the wind, the rain, the earth, the air, the moon and the sun, which brings them sustenance in their harmonious and natural environments. When one feels for the zebra being both caught and eaten, one feels empathy, despair and compassion. On the other hand, one must see that although the lioness feasts upon the zebra, so it is then that the lioness needs to eat, because her own life and her cubs are dependent upon her to catch and kill her prey to keep her strength up and the milk flowing. Basically, they don't die. They are redistributed into new life, growth and nourishment. Further, if you want a more scientific view, carbon dioxide is created inside stars, and then when the stars collapse and explode, they are distributed all throughout the universe, our planet being just one of the places in which they end up. The plants take carbon dioxide from the air and strip it of the carbon. Then the plant-eating animals take it from the plants and convert it into sugar, and then the meat-eating animals eat the plant eaters and get it from them, and that is the food chain from star to life. It is also interesting that the animals that eat the trees and plants also breathe in the air which the trees and plants create, and the plants breathe in the carbon dioxide that they expel. So there is a symbiotic harmony in even what the trees, plants and animals inhale and exhale. Staying with science, all animals and plants are different variations of life that have come into being, originally from rocks, water, carbon dioxide, and hydrothermal vents on the ocean's floor that provide the perfect environment for life to be created and to exist. Then, with the bombardment of cosmic rays on the DNA of that life, and we have all the variations of living plants and animals today. The cosmic rays bombard the animals or plants' DNA, and this causes a mutation, which ends up being a different animal, plant, or species, and if they can find their place in the ecosystem and harmonize, they then become a new life form in the food chain. If they cannot survive, harmonize, or reproduce, they blink and then out of existence in one life cycle, or until they starve, or are eaten. It is in this way that we can see that the predator and its prey, although horrific, are one of the main driving forces behind evolution's success, where the hunter and the hunted are forever utilizing the evolutionary changes to be more cunning, be more camouflaged, or to outrun the other in a savage world where only the fittest or the harmonious get to survive. By looking at evolution and natural selection, it is possible to trace a coherent pathway leading back to, as I say, from no more than rocks, water, carbon dioxide and hydrothermal vents on the ocean's floor, then back forward again to all the strange bioenergetic properties of all cells living today. Coming back to the spiritual, although it seems that random genetic mutation and natural selection works alone, they do not, for spirit is the backbone that makes it all possible. Yes, spirit works in mysterious ways through evolution and nature, even though on the surface they seem independent of any creative force. Metaphorically speaking, it is like a game of marbles between two young boys. They do not get it direct hit every time. Like random genetic mutation, sometimes they miss, but like evolution and harmony, they can eventually learn and succeed and go on to win the game. You know, without trial, miss and error, life would not be as vital and vibrant when it eventually succeeds, and the same can be said with marbles. It would not be as exciting without the mistakes that paved the way to the winning of the game. If the boys were invisible and all you could see was the marbles flying through the air on their own, it could be seen that the marbles are independently missing or hitting each other, but if you can see the boys, or the bigger picture, you can see that they are playing a game of skill, luck, confidence and chaos. It is the same with spirit and nature in their game of creativity and life. And I will stipulate, no matter what it seems like on the surface, to the naked eye, you are not alone. When nature destroys a city, say with a tidal wave, hurricane, volcano, or an earthquake, it does not see the life that is destroyed in its wake. It does not reflect on all the human pain, death and suffering from its destructive force. If it could see, just like the hungry lion as it feasts upon the zebra, or the hungry zebra when it feasts upon the grass, or the death of a star with the rebirth of another star, and the distribution of atoms all throughout the universe, and the creation of solar systems like your own, all it would see is a transformation, or rebalancing of energy. One side of nature is just energy, so it really does not see or care at all. When nature does see and care, it sees and cares with life and spirit. He then asked, I know what you have just wrote, but I am still afraid of my death, so can you help me to overcome it? There is nothing to be afraid of, for you have died several times in the past, and yet here you are in your present life, fit and well, playing another role in the human aspect of your life. There is no trick to overcome death. It is all in the act of acceptance and letting go. We will come to that subject with more depth a little later. However, to help you along with the acceptance of trusting the natural process, I will share with you a divine metaphor. So take a deep breath, hold it for 2 seconds and then let it go. Relax and read, and then we can proceed. I want you to visualize a flowing river. Oh, how beautiful it is, flowing gently downstream toward the ocean. Then, the river becomes rapid, but it is no less beautiful, just faster as it flows through the mountainous landscape. Then, suddenly there is a perilous drop and the water transforms into a waterfall. Now, one little droplet of water does not want to fall, so it clings to a rock in fear of its fate. Sometimes, the sun and the wind will gather it into the air where it becomes part of a cloud, where eventually it falls onto a mountain peak as snow, mist or rain. Then, with the help of nature, it becomes a part of the source of a river once more and its journey begins again. Sometimes, it stays on the rock for some time contemplating its situation, and then, because it can see no way out of it, it succumbs to its inevitable fate and makes the drop. At first, it feels fear of the unknown and the natural fear of falling to what it thinks is its death. Eventually, it descends quite naturally and it flows, not falls. Then, before it knows it, it is in a beautiful and tranquil river once more. It eventually completes its journey as it flows in tranquilly into the warm, loving arms of the ambient ocean. So, it is answer, when you leave the physical realm, do not fear death, greet death, and flow naturally into the eternal sea. Forget your fear of the unknown, tune into spirit and love and die comfortably and be free. He then asked, how is the universe happening? Once again, I will show you a metaphor for your answer. Once upon a time, a tree lived in a beautiful land. The tree had everything that it needed: light, water, rich soil, air, sun and rain. Then, one fine day it began to bud, and the buds, as time passed by, became beautiful fruit. The fruit eventually ripened and fell from the tree to become more trees that eventually bore their own fruit, that eventually ripened and fell and became more trees. After a time, there was a beautiful and infinitely expanding orchard. He then asked, how is all this happening? It replied, because it wants to and it can. What would you prefer to be? A single isolated fruit tree in a field, or one of many in a beautiful expanding infinite orchard? Anza was riveted to what it said. He nodded his head for his answer, and then he asked it, "Why did you write that literature?" It replied, "We wrote the English and Latin literature, knowing that you would feel dumbfounded to the how and the why, and that eventually you would check it out. When you found out that it was proper words, and that although they were written in 2 languages, you would know that it was not you that wrote it, because it could be objectified, you could only come up with 1 or 2 conclusions. Was it a ghost, or some kind of alien telepathic communication? Eventually, you would try to communicate with us and you would uncover the true answer." He then asked, "Where is God?" It answered, "When you go to sleep at night, the same as every night, there will come a time when you dream. When you do, you will dream that you are you, and you will dream that you are other people too, and the surroundings like the grass, air, wind, objects, conversations, events and happenings. Well, just as you dream, and everybody and everything is made up of your mind, so it is with life, because we are all in God's dream, and so it is of all creation. However, when you dream, even though you dream the whole dream into creation, you only dream from one solitary role, whereas, when God dreams everybody and everything into creation, it dreams from every role or perspective. Basically, the whole dream is alive and aware. Of course, the dream analogy is only an analogy, because it is not like your dream, because God is energy, not a person having a dream. God is aware and in control of the dream, and it lives its life in this way. You know, dreaming everyone and everything into creation. So do not fear. It will not awake, leaving you and everything just a memory. For dreaming creation is a major part of its main goal, its main ambition and its purpose. It is your role to discover this, and then on your part to transform the dream into paradise, like heaven on earth. You, as of all people, are to be a person with good moral fiber and good virtue, and reach out and touch the hearts and minds of everyone that you meet in the dream with love and compassion. It is in this way that you will be rewarded in kind with love and evoke the spirit on earth, and eventually you will have a second birth beyond the light, and you will become as a god and stand beside it in heaven, alive in the truest sense and separate from the dream in eternal matter. This is the finest and truest role of God. It dreams all of creation and the light into fruition, so as it can carry it all over into eternity. Creation itself will become the stage, and the individual spirits will eventually stand beside itself as gods in the eternal play in eternal matter. Yes, this is how God procreates. We are all in a kind of spiritual womb being created, fashioned and perfected. Yes, we are all God's children, and we are all part of its future. As I wrote earlier, we call God's dream and God's spirit, for it is less confusing, because there are so many connotations and expectancies with the name God. So this eradicates any conjecture or confusion. Why did you not just show me something, or tell me of something before it occurred? He asked somewhat apprehensively. Well, there are ways and there are ways, and to show you a future event, we have come full circle, and this time our message is in par with your question. Humankind's primal need to survive and prosper is destroying your planet. Like the hungry bear, they do not see the beehive that they are destroying, just the honey, it replied. He then asked, "What do you mean we are destroying the planet?" It replied, "Humankind's selfish, unthinking, unruly and narcissistic nature is polluting their environment to such an extent that it is on the verge of a global catastrophe. Plants, animals, insects and an array of other species are falling off of the tree of life, like the leaves that fall from the trees in the autumn, only there will be no spring after winter, just extinction. That thick cloud cover that you see from your window is not part of nature other than the mark of human nature inflicted onto your planet. Your soulless hearts just see that truth as plain fantasy, along with your godless eyes where infinity has laid eternity to rest. You have created heaven and hell on your earth in its wake, and hell is winning the battle for dominion. The same dark drives and ambitions that create your soulless worldview and culture where east is east and west is what you are inflicting upon the world's natural beauties, gifts and treasures. Nature has begun to suffer the same result as your indigenous tribesmen of old as they were mowed down to make way for the European pioneers. You pay money for riches and you take as you fake your way onward up through society. All the thoughtless predators will eventually, or inevitably be swallowed up by eternity, and it is then that they will see the damage that they have inflicted upon the nature of the world. Ironically, it is then that they will be stripped and lose their spiritual ignorance. So, it is then that you are heading forward into global suicide, and that is as fundamental and as basic as the survival gene that has become deluded and is running blind and making a mockery of your worldly responsibilities. He then replied with another question: how can I help prevent it? Who will listen to the ramblings of a 23-year-old young man? Knowledge and wisdom uses words and language as a builder uses bricks and concrete to build a building. It does not matter what the bricks look like. All that matters is that the bricks doing what is needed and that they are constructed on good foundations. So it is with words. It does not matter how fanciful or sophisticated the words. All that matters is that everybody, including oneself, fully comprehends the message and that the message has solid foundations. You can tell the world what we have told you and you will be the catalyst for change. Only the politically minded observe the workings and goings on of the Earth's summit. You must get the message through to the common people with your book and create a critical mass from the consumers and voting public. Changes can occur if you word it right. If you believe in what you write and write it with confidence and conviction and persist, people will hear your distant cry. Times are not just changing for the opposite of sexes and races, but also cultures are shifting, and in this time anybody can stand up and be heard, for we are heard on merit, not social birthright. I think the more lay the message, the more impact it will have both socially and environmentally on your ever-changing world. Just like the consumers who forced the fishermen to have dolphin-friendly tuna. So it is that you can sow the seeds of change when it comes to deforestation, islandization, overharvesting, the introduction of alien species, killing off targeted species for humankind's benefit, pollution, and finally war, poverty and greed. Can you tell me how to seek my path to the light? He asked. It then went on to write, I can only show you the way, for it is you that must tread. Heaven is made out of 7 dimensions, or levels, as I wrote earlier. Now let me elucidate, because you are in dense thought and this gives the illusion that you and your world is physical. Your mind is housed in and around your body, and all the different levels are merged together while you exist on earth. Whereas in spirit everything is made up of pure thought, and that is why you have different levels or divisions there. Whether you are rich or poor, a duchess, a duke, a maid, a butler, a porter, a chauffeur, a scientist, a sage, a scholar, a genius, a layman, an office worker, a laborer, or if you live off of charity, or are a drifter, or a thief, or what nation, or flag that you fly, what gender that you are, or have chosen to become, what religion that you like to uphold, or have chosen to follow while you were on earth. It is not your social status that divides you when you go to that warm, loving, oceanic energy that awaits you when you cross. For after you leave the physical world behind, all your achievements and/or accomplishments will boil down to what you know, your earthly conduct, and what state of mind that you are in at your time of the crossing, and that determines where you will reside in the light. Yes, the only thing that will divide you is the warmth, depth and clarity of your heart, and it does not only depend upon this one solitary life that you are now living. It will be weighed and measured from all of your past incarnations from time immemorial. For at the time of the crossing, after you have impressed your current self with your former selves and merged and have become as one, it is then that you will be welcomed with the ever-loving open arms of the light. If your mind grows while you are there and you become more spiritually aware, you will go up through the levels to reside in the level that reflects your mental, emotional and spiritual state. Basically, we traverse from the denser levels to the subtler levels. On the lower levels you are demonic. Then as you lift on up the divisions you become more human, and the higher that you go the more subtle and ethereal you become, right up to the highest level where you shed your body altogether and you become a glowing, loving, harmonic orb of ethereal light. Then you impress yourself onto your higher self, where you become your God self, and as one door shuts another door opens, and God only knows where you go from there. Wow! Is all he could muster. It then wrote furiously, coming back to your destiny, you must write that if the ruling powers of the world do not harmonize with the rest and help rid the world of famine, poverty and disease, then those that are at the seat of power will become victims in their afterlife. It will be near impossible to repent and grow toward the harmonious levels of the light from where they end up. Being good is not about believing in God. It is about love, hope and charity, and if you lack these basic elements to your personality, when you cross over you shall walk with the demons, and you will be as far away from God as you can get. You must get this message across to those who are at the seat of power, or their souls will be forever damned. Show them that it is time to raise hope in all and spread unconditional love and charity throughout the world, and to create peace on your earth that emanates from within and without everybody that lives, walks and breathes. You must educate yourself so you can relay the message, and remember, write it as you speak it, and when you are ready use the popular bookstores and mediums, television, the internet and politics, for they have accesses to the whole world. He then asked, say if they do not listen, or see me as a prankster, or a religious lunatic. It replied with, what you write will at first only interest, or affect the few, but if you persevere with your guide and work your way from the bottom up in the field and in study and accompany it with critical thinking and spiritual philosophy and politics, then eventually everyone will see the light of the truth. If you share the above wisdom of creation that we covered earlier, then through the porthole into absolution, you will be affecting the very fabrics of their essential selves, and they will have no choice but to understand and see your spiritual plight. There are souls that have come down ahead of you, and souls that have been born into your generation, and there are souls that will come in the future generations that also share the assignment that has been set. Each soul has their own destiny, but they share the same path, for they are all constituents and co-creators of creation. Like synchronized swimmers, when you all perform your tasks together, you will create a beautiful picture of a wonderful future, as on earth as in spiritual heaven. Nothing happens by chance, for everything has its place and its duty, for it is designed and illustrated in spirit, and then orchestrated and created in the physical realms. So, remember, we are always there, and we will ever be at your service throughout all eternity. If you get everyone to practice seeing things as the glass half full, hence promoting hope and goodwill as opposed to narcissism, cynicism, fear and pessimism, in the end who would you rather sit with, the former or the latter? You must internally adjust yourself as well, and that would be getting off at the right foot, so to speak, and all the aforementioned choices and actions should all fall into place, for all they need is your true belief, and you can heal the world from the inside out. It then wrote, You know you have a very beautiful life ahead of you, Anza. All you have to do is to learn how to embrace it, to live it in full. At that the writing bid him good night, and told him he did not need luck and have no doubt, for it was always his destiny. He told him to be aware of his intuition, and always listen to the spirit people, and when he sees the synchronicities, that was the sign that all was well and is going to plan. Finally, I must also write that God feeds on love. So it is important for us all to give and receive as much love as possible whenever and wherever we can. Remember, happy creation is a healthy creation, and so on and so forth.